Is it in the mornings?
Yeah, I usually do like 7,
7 o'clock.
Yeah, because my day gets so crazy after I get to the office.
Are you one of these early risers?
Yeah, I usually try to get 5:30, something like that.
You set the alarm?
Yeah, oh yeah. If my natural wake up time is about 7 a.m. If I don't do anything, my body wakes up about 7. So I prefer to get up about 5 because there's so much more you can get done in that time frame.
But don't you have to go to bed in order to get up that early?
I like to go to bed about midnight, 1 o'clock. I don't get a lot of sleep. I'm one of those people I never have. Just fine with it.
You know, I think better
Yeah.
on 5 hours.
Yes.
But I don't feel good on 5 hours. But I think better.
Yeah.
Or it's in my mind.
Yeah, I feel better after I get going. I gotta have like 20 minutes to just get started.
What's your wake up routine?
Honestly, about the 17th alarm, I usually wake up, take the dogs out, then hop in the shower, and basically just go to work. That's it.
No exercise, no stretching?
Back before the campaign, I'd get up and I'd go to the gym, meet a buddy of mine over there at the gym.
Which gym?
Planet Fitness. So we'd head over there and get a workout in, and then go to the office by about 7. But
do you have to take a shower after you?
Oh yeah. I'm too fat.
Where is Planet Fitness?
That is down at off 40, the old food line.
Is that 24/7?
Oh yeah.
Which one's 24/7?
That one is 24/7.
Oh, yeah.
I think they switched some during the last 2 years, but I think they're back to 24/7 now.
You know, some people go there like at 2 in the morning.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When I was single, I would go to the old Rush. I think it's Oh Yeah now down at the Village Mall.
Yeah.
I'd go over there at before I got married at like 11:30 midnight and work out because back before my wife was living in Nashville. So I'd work, go home, get some food, go back to the office at about 7, work till about 11:30, and then I'd go to the gym, and then I'd usually see an ad on TV for tacos and stop at Taco Bell and get something to eat at midnight.
It's hard to beat a Taco Bell.
Man, it is. I tell you, it's that junk food just has
and
such
the
a
sauce.
good taste to it.
I love the sauce.
Oh, I tell you, that hot sauce is great.
Yeah, you can put their sauce on something else, and it doesn't taste the same as it does if it's not on their tacos.
Their taco, it's blended perfectly for what they have.
Exactly.
Not saying it's the best taco around,
but it's blended
for it.
Somewhere there was a guy in the lab that said, okay, with this, that goes better.
Oh,
About like a RC Cola and a moon pie.
Oh yeah. Honestly, an RC versus a Coke,
Yeah.
it's night and day for that.
It's right.
Yeah. The funny thing is, back when Coke and Pepsi had their little turf war in the 80s, I finally learned why Pepsi always won. It's because they have a higher concentration of sugar. And so that short, small taste, it tastes better. But over the course of a can, the Coke tastes better. So that's why they win on just the taste test versus the product sales, because everybody enjoys a full Coke more than just a sip. So that's a little known fact.
That goes into something I've been thinking lately. How much how much of our world is perception?
Oh, so much.
Is it? It may be everything.
Oh, I'd agree with that. I would.
I watched this guy on the internet. He's on Rumble. He's on this kind of a rogue guy.
Yeah.
And he'll come up with these scenarios like he'll say, tomorrow there's going to be a mass flood of the whole United States. And so I'll go on there the next day to say, what's he going to say now? Because there wasn't a mass flood.
Yeah, exactly.
And he'll say, well, they've closed up the dams and they've got word that and he'll come up with something that changes why that didn't happen and why it's going to happen tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
And that goes on and on every day.
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, even if he's wrong, it's working for him.
Oh, completely. Well, and not to get political, but talk about politicians. How well versed are they these days? You ask a question, and they just shift and pivot over to the question they want to answer. And they've got it down to an art these days, I feel like. that nobody ever answers the question that they're asked. And I think that speaks to the larger part of society, that your perception of reality that's really what dictates everything. You know, the number of times I have clients that come in and they tell me, oh, this judge hates me, this judge this, and this judge that. And I listen to their facts and I go, no. These facts are a problem, and this judge has a life experience, and because of this life experience, this problem, this is how they handle that issue. And they're just so clueless as to how somebody else sees things. People don't see things from other people's perspective like they did, at least when I was younger. I feel like it's gotten worse over the years. I feel like people are so focused on their perspective that they can't see anything from anyone else's.
Is that called cognitive biases, I guess is a technical term?
Probably. Dee, I'll be honest, I hadn't had a sociology or psychology class since college, and that's been 20 years, so I don't know, but I think so.
But that's sort of the definition.
Yeah.
In other words, and I get to rambling on, but
I do too.
But if you know, the idea of saying, like this guy on the internet,
Oh, yeah.
he can change why it didn't happen
Of course.
to meet his narrative.
Yep.
And it works for him.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing. Some people are so skilled at doing that. And I've never understood it. My wife says that I'm full of bull, and I tend to disagree with her, but there's honestly so many people that are so good at spinning things that don't work out for them to be like it's that there's a good rational explanation as to why not. And people just honestly seem to forget everything that was said before, and they just move on with the new, let's be honest, with the new lie, and they're fine with it. You know,
and as long as they keep moving, it's not over yet.
It's like a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah,
it really is. I mean, and I hate to say it, but I really feel as if we are in the point of time where facts and news and so much of the human experience is in effect a large Ponzi scheme, because we're just basically kicking the can down the road and not dealing with the consequences of our actions or the things we say. There's never a time that we come to a conclusion and have to account for the things that we did or things that we said. I mean, again, not to get political, but look at the pandemic. Look at the things that governments across the world, local and not, have done. Yeah, you've got this landlord. You have rental property. There for a period of time, you weren't able to even get into court, really, in many places, to do an eviction.
Yeah.
And I'm not sitting here saying that I support a landlord or support a tenant, but I support being able to be in front of a judge and have the judge hear the facts and make a decision. Due process, it's important. But at no point, even after the Supreme Court's come out and made a ruling, is anybody held accountable? Is anything come back and anyone come back and say, hey, you know what, we got that wrong? And it's a small picture, but there's so much. You know, the guy that always predicted the end of the world with the comet that comes through.
Yeah.
You know, I forget his name, but
yeah.
We just keep pushing that end time. Just, oh, no, now it's going to be March. No, it's going to be November. Now it's going to be 2023.
That's what the guy on the internet does.
Yeah.
He keeps moving it.
Yeah.
And maybe we do that on a level that we don't even realize.
On the micro level, I think that many of us do. And I think that if we can ever stop and take an assessment of that, you know, I think that we could grow as individuals.
Well, let's say we said, okay, I'm going to start. It's January the 1st. I'm going to start running 5 miles a week.
Yeah.
And the first day you say, well, it looks like it's going to rain.
Exactly.
And then the next day you say, well, it looks like it's going to be too windy.
Yeah.
And you just keep moving it to where it never really happens.
Exactly.
Did people do that? Is that human nature?
You know, I think it is, but Dee, and you know, it's hard because we all live inside ourselves so much. You know, this morning at church, I was even thinking about, you know, over the last 20 years, how I do things differently today than I did then. You know, I was one of those guys who January 1st, years ago, I told myself I was going to run 1,000 miles in the year. And I started out great. You know, in January we had a bunch of good days and it was great. Then March or April came and it just poured.
Yeah.
And so my average daily amount just kept dropping down. And at some point, you know, you get to the point where other things happen and you slip off. But I think, you know, it's something my wife told me 13, 14 years ago. You make time for what's important to you. And I think that factors in a lot. But I do think, getting back to that, I think that having that moment to assess where you are is something that we don't do anymore. I think we all have gotten too busy. I know I have. But, you know, I think that a little time for introspection and stopping and smelling the roses is needed on occasion to take stock of where you are and how you got there.
And where you're going.
Exactly.
Relook at the list. You know, there's a thing about reframing. You can reframe a situation to where, if I could give an example, like the reframe you make doesn't have to make sense.
True.
Let's say you say, "Hey, I've got to. I'm gonna jog 10 miles a week."
Yeah.
And you say, "The reason I'm going to jog 10 miles a week is because not jogging 10 miles a week makes my arm short."
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what the reason, how you reframe it, but if you can reframe it, the reframe doesn't have to make it doesn't have to make sense.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And I think that goes back to who's that guy that did that self-motivation thing?
Oh man.
What's his name?
Is it the big tall guy?
Yeah. What was his name?
I see his face, but I don't remember.
Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins. Yeah.
He would say. He would say that you had to come up with a reason. And you know, I had this barber one time that cut my hair for years.
Yeah.
He died finally. Smart. I mean, he was smart. He had a major in accounting and a minor in sociology. So this guy, a major in economics and a minor in sociology.
Nice.
And he said that the most important thing was to know the why.
Oh yeah.
The why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Even if the why was because I'm jealous and I want to do more than them. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So the why didn't matter. Just have a why.
And I think that's important. I mean, you know, I'm one of those people who the why matters to me more than the action. It really does.
That's what I was getting at.
I mean, completely. The reasoning that people do certain things, the reason you get out of bed in the morning, I think matters far more. I think intent is something that we don't pay as much attention to. You know, I'm somebody I've lived nearly 40 years, and strangely, I've not made that many people mad in 40 years. Don't know how, but I haven't. And I think the reason is I've got a pretty good heart, I feel like, and my intentions are always, I'll say normally, at least, pure and good-natured in intent. And I think that even if you and I disagree about something, if you know I'm coming from a place of honesty and integrity, then we can have a discussion about anything. And I think that's sort of what we've gotten away from. We're so polarized in society these days that we're so black and white, and nobody stops to talk about the why, you know, at all.
Yeah.
You know, and it's one of those of, over the years, I've had numerous, I mean, I went to law school, for crying out loud. You know, the political makeup of lawyers is generally pretty liberal and a few conservatives. So I had a lot of political debates in law school, and it was the sort of thing of, I always enjoyed them because I came into it with, here are the facts, here are my opinions, here are why I have these opinions. And people can respect that. They might not agree, but we can respect it. I can understand somebody else's position. But these folks who just come in and tell you that you're wrong because you're wrong, well, I need to know why it is I'm wrong.
That's right.
I'm happy to look at changing my opinion about something if you can show me where the fallacy in my thinking is. happy to change my opinion. But until then, why should I change it if I think I'm right? And if what I see proves that I'm right, until you can prove me wrong.
So if you get in an argument with somebody and you say, I think you should, and they say, well, I think you should.
Yeah.
This repeating
Oh, yeah.
is not going to solve anything.
No, nothing at all.
We have to say, well, here's why I do that, because I have a hole in my shoe and my foot hurts.
Exactly.
Oh, I see why he does that.
Yeah.
I still disagree.
Oh, of course.
But now I know why.
Exactly. And you know, that's it, is we all have life experiences that teach us certain things. Your dad, I've known him since I was a kid. And, Bob, your experience growing up with Bob is one thing. My experience growing up with Johnny Morgan is another thing.
Different.
They're different. They're not wrong. They're not bad. They're not good. They are what they are. And what you may have grown up being accustomed to, how to cook a hot dog, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
And the way that I grew up cooking a hot dog. Well, hey, maybe I like this time, but hey, I can try your way and see if I like it. You can try mine. But that's the problem, is I think too often we just get into the situation where we hold to things that we haven't even explored why we believe or feel the way we do.
Or why they believe that.
Exactly.
Have you heard that story? I guess everybody's heard that analogy of the lady that went to Thanksgiving dinner and she cut the end off of her turkey. And so finally her husband said, why do you always cut the end off of the turkey? And the lady said, I don't know. My grandmother always cut the end off.
Yeah.
And so they finally went to the grandmother and said, hey, why do you always cut the end off your turkey? And she said, well, I had a small oven that it wouldn't fit. There wasn't no There wasn't no master plan to it.
No.
It just, so we never know who has a small oven.
Exactly. Well, it's some of the biggest arguments I ever have with my wife. She has a bad day or she is upset about something, and what do? I do what I do for a living. I come up with answers. I come up with solutions. She's got a problem, I'll solve it. And that's not what she wants. And
What do they want?
They want to be heard. They want to be understood. They want to be listened to. And my problem is my brain goes straight to problem solving. It goes straight to fix the issue. If you come in and you have a turkey that won't fit in the oven, we cut the end off of it.
Or you turn it sideways.
Or we buy a smaller one. Or we rebuild the house. Whatever it is we have to do, we're going to move heaven and earth to make it work. And what I've learned over the years, slowly I might add, is that sometimes you just have to listen. And sometimes you just have to hear what they have to say and then arrive at the problem-solving step together. And
I don't even know sometimes if women want to solve the problem. They just want to be heard.
I think so.
And men want to solve. They want to fix.
And I don't even care if you tell me about it. Just tell me what the problem is and let me do my thing.
Yeah. I'll attempt to fix it.
Oh, yeah. It's one of those things. The best days for me are when my wife has chores for me to do or has things she wants done. And she basically just says, hey, you just do it. I'll see you at 7 o'clock. Fantastic. I'm up at 5. I'm trying not to wake Tim Riggs, my neighbor, up. And I'm just getting things done. It's great because my problem is I get so focused on a task that everything else is just white noise. I'm so tunneled in on doing the task. Back when we were dating, I got in trouble all the time because we'd have plans at 7 o'clock. I'd get in the shower at 6:55, and
I'm going to be respectively late.
Oh yeah,
maybe not. I'm still going to make it.
I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
I might be 5 minutes late, but I'm going to be there. But the problem is, I try to squeeze so much into one day, and I've always done that. I probably always will do that. But that's also just who I am as a person. And she started to realize that, hey, no amount of talking is going to change that. It's like today. I mean, I showed up 4 minutes, 3 minutes before.
2 minutes before.
Which is great for me. Yeah. I'm usually knocking out some other things at home or somewhere. But yeah, and that's the thing is learning about people. I had a buddy, great guy. I don't know how many times we'd have plans to go to a football game or a road trip or something. I'd know if he was going or not when I left. And I mean, that was it. Yeah. I mean, we would have plans, we'd have tickets. I don't know how many times I'd get a call at 2:30 and we're leaving at 2:30. Hey man, I can't make it. we're still great friends. It's just that's what I know about him, and it's one of those you just walk into the situation knowing that this is what you could expect, and hey, it is what it is.
And if somebody said, "Is he going?" You'd say,
"We'll see."
We'll see, and they'd say, "But I thought he told you he was going." Yeah, but I know him, and we won't know till that time.
Exactly. And the thing is, I think this is where people need to find happiness, is just accept people for who they are. I mean, with him, love the guy, love for him to go. I invite him to stuff all the time. But it's one of those things of, if it's a Super Bowl ticket and I only got 2 of them, he probably might not get invited just because I don't want to be,
Because you don't know.
Right. But for the most part, I mean, our friendship's the same as it always has been, just because that's just how he is. You got other people that they can say, I'll be there, and they're not going to miss a thing.
They'll be there. They'll be at Lombardi time,
Exactly.
10 minutes ahead.
Exactly. And then you got the rest of us who show up 5 minutes late. So yeah, it's just get to know people, and not to the point where you put them in a box and you can't expect anything else from them, but just know that that's okay. It's not the end of the world.
They're probably not going to change either.
They're not, and it's the sort of thing that we all have little personality quirks, and it just is what it is. Earlier you asked me what my hobbies are. First thing I said was work, and that's who I am. I'll be the guy who's retires one day and goes to work at Habitat building houses. That's my dream and my goal in life, is to be out there like Jerry Frenetza swinging a hammer at, well, not that Jerry's 80, but I'd like to be out there at 80 and doing work. That's just who I am. My granddad died at work. I'll probably be right there with him.
Have you ever heard that speech, Any Given Sunday, by Al Pacino?
Oh, yes, from the movie, yes.
Oh, isn't that?
Oh, it's great.
You should listen to that every morning.
Yes. I saw something. We missed the Super Bowl. We were up in Boston for my wife's doctor's appointments, and so last night I finally turned it on, and I saw the intro was all these clips from games and NFL movie or football movies, and that was a snippet of it. Yeah, it's great.
That is really so true, and that goes back to what you're saying. You got here 2 minutes ahead of time. It's those inches.
Oh yeah.
In his speech, he says we claw for those inches because that makes the difference between winning or losing.
Oh yeah.
And now,
Yeah.
why win or lose? Why do we want to win? What's the trophy?
Hey, with anything, I don't know what it is, but me personally, my feeling is if I'm going to do something, I'm not going to do it to come in second. I forgot the exact quote, but Enzo Ferrari once said that second place is a place I'll never be. And that's just something that I myself have always strived to be. If I'm going to do something, I want to be great at it. I want to be the best. I want to be number one. I know that I have certain limitations. When I was a kid, I wanted to be president. We've had 46 of them. I mean, 46 people in the history of this great nation.
You want to be.
I wanted to be one of those at that point, maybe 50 guys when I get old enough. At this point in life, I fully realized that those would be delusions of grandeur if I still had that desire. But as a kid, that's where I was attracted to, is to be the best of the best. At this point in life, I really just want to be, if I do something, I want to be good at it. I want to excel. I want to give it my all. And, just be the best version of myself I can be.
Do you think in sports and school we learned that, I'm not tall, I can't play basketball?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Was there a point where I said, hey, I can't compete. I can't be number one. So I'm not going to do that?
Right. I think that for a lot of us, that is something that we do, because I knew pretty early on that I didn't have the coordination to play basketball beyond the point of maybe junior high or somewhere in that range. And so at some point you just go, hey, I enjoy this for intramurals, I enjoy this for gym time or backyard games, but I'm going to focus on something that I actually am good at. It's one of those that I'd rather focus my talents towards something I actually enjoy or have a future in than waste it on something else. I looked at disability law once. I was bored to tears. Couldn't handle it. It was just not something I had any interest or desire to look at. And so I quickly shifted away from that. And I think we all do that. Sometimes I think to our peril, we abandon things too soon. And I also think to our peril we stick with some things longer than we should. And I think that's, the old stereotype of the guy who peaked in high school and still wears his Letterman jacket 20 years later and all that. I think that for kids especially, I think we need to help them understand that the things that define you for the first 18 years of your life may not define you for the next 70, 80 years.
Let me tell you about Capstar Bank. They're located in Nashville, Hendersonville, Gallatin, Athens, Madisonville, Sweetwater, Etowah, and in Cleveland at 950 25th Street and 3855 North Ocoee Street. I've used them. I like them. Give them a try. They're no problem. So take a person that's in school that maybe was bullied. And so what you're saying is kids need to realize that does not define them.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And that's the thing is, being bullied definitely doesn't define them. Being a star athlete doesn't define them. It may help them, and it may give them some things that they might not have had before, a sense of teamwork, a sense of belonging, somebody who cares about them. Because, there's some kids who don't have that at home. They just don't. And, sports or friends is what they go to. But, I was a kid who, I went to Michigan Avenue and then Bradley Junior and Bradley Central. Well, all the people I went to elementary school that I knew, because, elementary school, everybody in the school. Everybody that I went to school with pretty much went to Truett, and I was at Bradley. So here I am in 7th grade, don't know anybody. So I don't have any friends. I'm by nature not really an outgoing person. I'm not. So if you ever see me out in public and I don't talk to you, it's probably because I'm just not paying attention. I'm just thinking about my own stuff and tunnel vision. Yeah. And I'm just not an outgoing person. I'm friendly. I'm nice. Talk to me and I'll talk to you all day long. But that was me in school. And so it's one of those that, I wasn't that popular. So it's easy to sit back at 19 or 20 or college and sit here and go, well, hey, I was this little nerdy kid who didn't have any friends, and let that define you for life. But why? Why should it? Because who you are as a child doesn't mean that that's the role you have to take for the rest of your life. I got out of, when I was in college, I did an internship in Nashville at the state legislature. And for some reason, that first day, I went in and I told myself, I'm like, you're going to talk to people, because that's not something I enjoy doing. I don't like just blind walk in. And so I went up to some people and just started talking. Next thing you know, all of a sudden, I'm this outgoing person who just like talks to everybody. And I was that. I've been that way ever since. It's one of those that, I still don't enjoy going to places I don't know anybody and striking up conversations because I don't know you. I don't know what you want to talk about. Because I'm not somebody who just likes to sit here and talk about myself. I don't like to search for things that interest you. But if I know there's something that Dee Burris cares about, then let's talk about that. Tell me what it is that you want to talk about. Let's talk about that. But my point in all that rambling is that kids just do not have to be defined by whatever they went through in school.
And we could say the same thing for somebody that's 50.
Oh, completely.
The way you were in the past doesn't define.
And that's the thing that we all need to understand is, yesterday, my preacher said it best this morning, if I can remember what he said. I don't care where you've been. I care about where you're going. And that's the truest statement I've heard. Because, the rear view mirror is small for a reason. The windshield's massive for another. And where you're going is the thing that matters.
Well, I've never heard that. Who said that?
Which part? The windshield?
Yeah, the windshield.
I've heard that somewhere.
I haven't ever heard that. But boy, that's so true.
It is, because that rear view mirror is so small. And because what is behind you when you're driving a car doesn't really matter. You need to have some perspective. But where you're going, that's the point
that's
of life.
That's the big picture.
It is. That's the whole part of life that matters. And that's the thing that I want to get across to kids. We have interns over at the office. We've had about 20 of them. And these kids come from a myriad amount of backgrounds. We've got kids who've lost parents. We've got kids who've been in the system. We've got good kids with straight A's that, never get in trouble. But all of them have the same thing in common. Where am I going from here? And that's the question all of them face, whether they're in high school, starting college, finishing college, or even in law school. What am I doing from here? And that's a question that they really need to focus on without pressuring themselves up too much. But even then, it doesn't stop. I remember getting out of law school and going, well, now what? And, I sent out a few resumes. Richard Banks called me, and I got my first job. I had no idea about bankruptcy. I'd never taken a class in it. I had secured transactions and business organizations. That's the closest thing I had. And so I walk in the first day, and he brings me a client. And I'm sitting here going, so I saw his name and his address. What do I need to get? But, the thing is it's kind of like my dad taught me to swim. Push him in the pool, That's it. That's how I learned to drive a tractor. He set me on it and said, this is the clutch, this is the brake.
So law school doesn't really...
No, it doesn't prepare you for... It teaches you how to file an appeal. It teaches you what books to look in to research something. It gives you some of the tools to look into things. The number of people who walk out of law school that can quote the law to you is slim and none. It's just not, that's not what you're there to learn. So when I got out of school, I honestly thought I could make a living doing wills for people. I quickly realized that wasn't going to happen. I mean, you just can't make enough money doing that.
People don't care?
Well, it's just that, I charge for a whole will package $350 for a married couple. You can't get by on those, especially if you only do
You'd have to
10
do
a month.
10 a week.
Exactly. So it's one of those, especially if you have a staff. And you need a staff because you need 2 witnesses and a notary and,
somebody to type.
Exactly, which, I do most of that myself. Well, used to at least.
Did you have typing class?
In high school or junior high, one of the two. I had it back then, but...
Can you type pretty quick?
Pretty well. I'd probably say I'm 40 words a minute, something like that. No, I'm pretty good. Hey, law school taking notes on a laptop, you get pretty efficient.
So you have experience with laptop typing, not the old keyboard.
I actually did. My grandma, she had a typewriter at my mom's business at Bradley Interiors back when they had it. And she had it up front, and for some reason, when I was younger, I really enjoyed sitting down on this old typewriter. I don't even remember what brand it was, but it was this nice old typewriter. And I would actually type out. I had a newsletter when I was in like 4th grade that I handed out to my classmates. It was the weirdest thing. But
Are you embarrassed now?
No, not really, because it's one of those things of, people liked it. I just wrote about stuff I cared about, and, it was.
Where'd you get that idea?
I don't remember. I had Miss York. Mary Frances York? Yeah. I had her back in 4th grade. And I don't know if we talked about something in class one day, but between whatever we discussed in class and the typewriter, I just thought, hey, this would be kind of neat. And I don't know, it's just something that I did. I charged, I think, a nickel a sheet for it. I was always trying to find a way to make a dollar. I was just always, I've always been a capitalist. So I was charging my classmates a nickel a paper. But
remember when OP started his own paper?
Yes. Yes.
He was about the 4th grade.
I think so. There's something about it, it's just, I don't know, man. I've just always really been interested in a myriad amount of things. And I don't know, for some reason that was a phase I was into journalism. Go figure.
Do you think that somehow, back to the typewriter, that clicking noise, I could almost go to sleep with.
Oh, yeah. It's very therapeutic.
Crisp.
It is.
Crisp.
Yes. And that's the thing, I remember when we started using computers and, typing, it was so different because there wasn't that, I think that's the thing that I always enjoyed about farming, because at the end of it, you felt that you actually did something. It's the same thing with the typewriter. You can see the words on the paper because it's so easy just to hit that backspace button and lose it. It's so easy to not save it appropriately and lose all your work. Whereas, with the typewriter and the pad, it's physically there. Yeah. And so it's just
denting the paper.
Exactly.
It's something.
It's leaving a mark
that's it.
On the world. And that's, as crazy as it is, that's kind of something that's always mattered to me, is leaving behind a mark. Not a legacy, but leaving behind evidence that you did something, and yeah.
I think maybe that was your attraction to the newsletter and to the typing and wanting to type.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and that's it.
That's the why.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's it. It's just trying to leave something. Leave something there. I used to work for Richard Banks, like I said, and the Million Building. It's downtown. Mm-hmm. I don't know Mr. Million. Never met the man. Didn't know anything about it. I do know that used to be, I think, Chandler Fabrics back 50 years ago. That to me has always been interesting. The history of things has always been interesting. Mm-hmm. I've known your place was here for the last, I don't know, however many years. I just remember driving by and seeing the sign for the last decade, 2 decades, however long it's been. And that's something that, when I got my office just down the street, it was so neat to me to know that maybe in 10 years, somebody will be like, oh yeah, that was Andrew Morgan's law office. It's nothing important. It's neat. Just having a little touch of Cleveland history. I don't know. It's just something that always.
You were born and raised in Cleveland?
Oh, yeah.
When you said farming, was there a Morgan farm?
Oh no. Well, so my dad, when I was a kid, he was a truck driver. He drove he was with Magic Chef, and then went to Cleveland Express, and then he started dairying 1987, 88 range. So I was 5.
Wasn't that an odd year to start dairying?
Oh yeah.
It's the end of it, right?
Oh yeah. So he started, and of course we didn't. It's not like we had a farm. I mean, my granddad had some land, but it's mainly hills and hollers. And my dad ended up buying it from him, from 96 on. He paid for it. And but he bought in late 80s, 89, I think, he bought some land on Upper River Road and Union Grove. About 50 or so acres out there. So, and of course, dirt cheap.
Now that's Union Grove. Is that next to Union Grove Church?
Just closer to Upper River Road, right? Literally where Union Grove at Union Grove Church
and Morgan Road.
You're right, all that together. Old Bacon and all that.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Where was this farm at?
So he first started milking on Kate's Lane across from. Do you remember that old BMX, the motocross track that BJ ended up buying? We started a barn right across from there. Did that for 2 or 3 years. Then they bought the 50 acres in '89 and built a barn down there. It's at Union Grove, Upper River Road, right where they intersect. And so we milked cows there till 2005, I think, right when I went off to law school. So I literally was milking cows as long as I can remember, basically. And I actually was there doing it. It wasn't just like, oh, mom and dad do this.
How many did you milk?
The most we ever really got up to was about 70 a day. 70 twice a day, 70 head actually milking. We'd average between 50 and 70. Sometimes we got.
Is that profitable? Was it then?
It was then. Back, I talked to Ronald Davis the other day, and he had told me he just got out recently, but he said in January or December of this, just a few months ago, said that milk was bringing $20 a hundred, which is $20 per hundredweight of milk. Back in the mid to late 90s, that's what we were getting on the good years. So it's the same price today as it was back then. Back then, it could be profitable. It was. We were blessed because we had some really good cows, and my dad was, for a guy, he is honestly one of the smartest men I know. He studied and figured out the proper amount of feed and type of grain and hay to give them. We would average, I think those cows averaged about 75 pounds of milk per day, which was just, ridiculous. I think
you mean 75 pounds for all of them?
Each cow.
Each cow?
75 pounds a day.
Of milk?
Of milk.
And how much did you get for
$20 a hundredweight. So
what would that be?
Oh my goodness, per gallon?
Yeah.
Dee, you're making me do math on the spot.
Because that would be 75.
Divided by 8.
That's a lot of milk.
It is. I think, and I'm going off of bad memory here, so I'm thinking that a gallon would weigh about 8 and some change. It's around 9 gallons of milk, I think. And don't
so
hold
75
me
is 9
to
gallons.
this. It's about 9 and
for
some
$20.
A little less than that, but yeah, because $20 was for 100. So
what was that?
My math teachers would shoot me right now. But yeah, so you'd basically be looking at 75
That's $2.
It's basically 15 times 9. I'm not going to do math right now.
That's $2.
Probably, no, it'd be more. No, it'd be about $15 per day per cow. About 15. It's 75.
Times 70 cows.
Right. So 15 times 70 is, so every day you would gross about, nobody math check me at home, please, about $1,000 a day.
Boy, you just can't pay for 50 acres with that, can
No,
you?
you can't.
You can't do it.
You can't. And well, that was the thing, when we were milking the cows, we'd have 3 hours that the two of us would just be together talking. And so he would tell me, I don't know how many times I got budget lessons from him, telling me, hey, here's how much grain costs, and here's how much the fuel costs, and here's how much
we
the
had
tax
took that
is.
out of it.
Oh, yeah. And so it's the sort of thing. I remember, man, probably 7 or 8 years ago, I went with him to a sale, beef sale up in Sweetwater, and a calf brought like $125, $150, something like that. Actually, no, it was a little bit more. It was around $500. It was like a year-old calf, I think. Point is he had put all this time and effort and money into this calf, and I told him, I said, I made $500 a day walking across the courthouse. And at that point, it made it all real to me. All those times that he told me, you're going to go get an education, you're not going to come back and do this. And seeing that look on his face that day when we were able to talk and me say, I made as much money as you did off of a year's worth of work on this calf by walking across and making, a little bit of time over at the courthouse. I mean, that just, that was a moment that I think he was just very proud that I listened to him and did what he always told me to do. Because, I remember my first week at UT, I'd gotten done with, I got 2 years of college and high school, and so I was a 19-year-old junior. And I called him up and I said, I just don't like it up here. I don't know anybody. I'm away from you guys. I don't know anybody. I don't like it. He said, well, come on back. I'll buy about 50 more cows. We'll go in partners together. And I said, I'll give it another week. And, he still reminds me of that to this day. And it's one of those, if I look back, that was 21 years ago that we had that conversation. And it's an amazing ride that I've been on in the last 20 years. And it's all because of everything that he and Mom poured into me and my grandparents. And I'm very thankful that they pushed as hard as they did to get me to go and do something.
Did you feel like it was pressure then that's pushing you too much?
No, because it was one of those things, and I don't mean this in a bragging sort of way. I've always been a smart guy. I mean, I was always top of my class, and did my homework in class instead of listening because it made sense to me.
Well, you said you had 2 years of school when you went to college. Where did you get that at? Cleveland State?
Yeah, I was at Bradley Central, and they had a dual enrollment program. And, most of the time people were taking a class or two while they're, I went to see my guidance counselor and Miss Bivens, Donna Bivens, and I said, hey, I was a sophomore, rising junior. And I said, what if I took like 5 classes over here and did summer school? She said, you can do that, it's fine. So I mapped it out, and I figured if I do 20 hours here and I do 20 hours there, I can graduate before I get out of high school. So I actually walked across the stage at Cleveland State a week before I got my diploma at Bradley with 64 hours and an associate's degree. So I walked into college with a full ride because I had a 30-something on the ACT and had over 2 years of college done, walking in as a 19-year-old junior.
That is incredible.
I was the first person in the state of Tennessee to do it. My sister did it the next year. And then I think we've had several people, especially from this area, do it. Ruby Porter over at Cleveland State was one of my biggest supporters in that. Ruby was phenomenal. But yeah, Carl Height was over at Cleveland State. We got to know each other really well at that point. And yeah, it was a neat experience.
What was the associate's degree in?
Just general transfer. I was planning on going up to UT and getting this is one thing that I wish I'd have done differently. I wish I'd gotten a real degree. I started out as a history major with a political science minor. I switched and flipped those two because I ended up taking 4 or 5 upper level, senior level history classes my first semester. That's a lot of writing, a lot. And I decided at that point, I said, I've got enough for a history minor. I'm going to switch to poli-sci. If I knew what I knew now, and I tell every kid that comes through the office, I wouldn't have got a political science major. I would have gotten something like engineering or business at least. I would have done something that was transferable. Because when I got out of UT, I wasn't qualified to do anything. I had no skills that translated into the real world. So I got a job selling insurance over at Farmers Union Mutual for David Campbell. Did that for about a year, and I was just bored. It wasn't difficult work. It was just not something that inspired me in any way. So I decided to run for state representative and ran against Dwayne Bunch in the primary. Got 34%. I was 21 years old. Had no money and no nothing. I mean, it was, looking back, I wouldn't have changed anything because it taught me a lot of things. I got to meet a ton of people. Actually, it helped me get my job with Richard in 2008 when I came back because people at that point knew my name. It helped. But, oh my goodness, I didn't know the first thing. I ran the most retail campaign or most wholesale campaign you could run. It was a joke. But
and he was an incumbent.
He was an incumbent, a popular incumbent.
Yeah.
I was talking to Bill Dunn, a former Speaker of the House, who I actually worked for back in 2003. I talked to him last week, and I'd text him. I'd gotten his number and text him, and he said, "Aren't you the one that ran against?" And I go, "Yep, I did." So I still catch a little bit of grief from some of the members that were close with Dwayne back then, but yeah, did that, and then I decided to go off to law school, and the rest is history.
How long was law school?
2.5 years. Most people do 3, but I did
So you were going
school.
back to school?
Yeah, I took a year and a half off.
That took a lot of.
I'll say this: those gap years that people talk about are a terrible idea, at least for me, because you get to the point where you actually are making a little bit of money, and now you go back to unemployment. And that's hard. Plus, you get the bigger thing is you get out of the studying. I was hanging out with my friends and doing things and having fun, and now I'm back to studying. 4
You had a
hours a day.
rhythm going at UT.
Completely. Well, and it's not like I studied much at UT. I mean, it's political science. It's not difficult. But, law school, it's a whole new world. I went from being the smartest guy in the room most places I was at to, we're all smart. And, this doesn't make any sense. Because the biggest disadvantage I had walking into law school, one day, I remember a professor said, raise your hand if you have a parent who's a lawyer. 70% of the class. Raise your hand if your parent's if you have a parent that's a doctor or an accountant or a professional of some sort. Another 5 or 10% go up. And I'm looking around, there's 5 of us. Mm-hmm. There are 5 of us in this class of 75, 80 people that were just sitting here and so he starts asking. I go, farmer, interior decorator, one guy's like truck driver, one's preacher. And there's 5 people in my half of our incoming freshman class that just have no professional background. And so that was kind of hard because, some of my interns, they go to court with me. They see things, they hear things, they know what the difference between a complaint and a petition.
Definitions.
A motion, yes.
Definitions are a big deal.
I called my dad the first day of property and I said, okay, help me understand the difference between this and this. And he explained it. And I'm sitting here going, oh, okay. No idea. Because not having grown up in that, the only lawyer I knew at that point were 2. Ginger Buchanan, because, Eddie, her dad, and of course, John at Farm Bureau, and Marsha McMurray, because she did Mom and Dad's will. Those are the only 2 lawyers I knew walking into law school. So when I got out, they were still the only 2 lawyers I knew, because I ended up going to summer school and finishing up early because I wanted to graduate in December instead of May with everybody else, because I wanted to take the bar exam in February because I knew I'd study better. Because once baseball season starts, I knew that I'd be more interested in watching a Braves game than trying to study. Because trust me, studying 16 hours a day gets boring real quick.
Yeah.
So fewer distractions. But but yeah, it was interesting that first day, just seeing how few of us didn't come from that background.
That has to help. Just knowing the definitions, the terminology, the lingo. Like my kids, they probably know what a foundation is, or concrete is, or steel, because they hear it.
Exactly.
Your kids would probably say, "What's steel?"
Oh yeah.
So it gives you a leg up.
Oh yeah, it does. And and that's one thing that as I've gotten older has been helpful, because I have a great knowledge of so many things between mom and dad. I do the first house I bought was my grandparents' old house, and I pretty much flipped it basically by myself, because I was around enough construction at the farm, and mom doing enough on other things. I can do most things with my hands, at least to the point where it works. It may not be the prettiest thing in the world, but it works. And having a bit of diversity in your knowledge base is so great. But yeah, that was the hard part for me. Mom and dad, they didn't have an attorney. They had somebody do their wills. That was it. We didn't get sued. We weren't around the legal profession. So yeah, it's a huge leg up to know. And that's one of the things. The one regret I have of my childhood is all those times that I'd be with my dad, and he'd stop and talk to some farmer or some neighbor, and I'd be that kid who's just like, younger, and I'd be like, oh, I'm just ready to go. Can we, this TV, I want to go do this. I wish I'd have just sat and listened, because that's one thing that I wish kids would.
And I'm not sure if you don't listen and pick up some of that.
Oh, you do. You do.
So getting back to that, I used to work for my uncle.
Yeah.
And he built houses, and I would ride around with him. I cleaned up.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But I listened to him talk to subs and talk to the bankers, and so I gathered a lot of that. You don't have to necessarily be doing it to pick it up. But have you ever thought about that what we end up, somebody may not be an expert at this or an expert at that or an expert at that, but they have real good talents, not the best in the world, but their combination of talents make them very successful here.
Oh yeah.
Even though it's not a specific thing.
Oh yeah.
Like for instance, when you went to college, you didn't have to learn to type.
Right.
So, and when you went in talking with people, your dad talks to these farmers, and you sort of known how he talks to them, and you know some economics and some. So now you own your own practice. Yeah. You might not have known about your own practice if you had to have known the economics of a dairy farm.
Exactly. Well,
and back to working on a farm. You do some on a farm, and you're a mechanic, you're a carpenter, you're an electrician, you're a plumber, you're a doctor, you're a veterinarian. It goes on and on. That's why the Farm Bureau has that guy who is that guy?
What is his name? I don't even know his name anymore.
He says, what is that guy's name, Gwen? It says he wears the red hat, and it says Farm Bureau. He says, they say, ask so-and-so.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. I don't even know. I can see his face.
But you know what I'm talking about. So that's why. So the stacks of our talents.
Yes. I've always felt that a jack of all trades is so much better as a rule. The number of times that I see attorneys who are amazing at one area of law, that's great. But the problem is that's also a good way to miss some things because you may be an expert in this one area, but how does that interplay with this other area? You know, that's one thing that I've always enjoyed is doing more than just one thing because it's more entertaining. But, you know, knowing how domestic law factors in with bankruptcy law, with personal injury, with, you know,
it would have to.
It all goes like this. And while, yes, having somebody who's an expert in one thing is great, they're great for consulting. They're great for calling up and saying, hey, I got a buddy who does title work in Memphis. And if I've got a title question that George McCoy I can't find George, let's say, I'll call Tim and say, hey, Tim, here's my situation. What do you think? And it's great. But what he doesn't know is he may not have the divorce knowledge I have or the bankruptcy knowledge that I have. And so he can give me that piece of the picture and I can add it in to the things I know. And you're right, it's one of those things. I never took a business class in college or in high school. We didn't learn about accounting. We didn't learn about any of that. But I do the books for the office. I've always done the books for the office. How do you learn it? You learn it over the years. When your dad says, well, you got your mortgage, you got your taxes, you got your cost of production, you have all these things that pay. It's no different from a farm to a law practice. It's just not. The titles on the top of the Excel spreadsheet change. That's it. That's all it is. And the thing of it is having that wide breadth of knowledge, I think matters so much. And that's why I love it when kids are exposed to so many different industries, so many different things. Because until you can gather all those pieces of knowledge, how do you know that you want to be a nurse? How do you know you want to be an architect?
Even beyond that, how do we know, and this will make you laugh, you'll think I'm crazy, but how do we know that we wouldn't be the best bow hunter in the world?
Exactly.
I've never tried bow hunting.
Yeah.
I have no desire to bow hunt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But maybe if I tried it, I'd say, man, this is my life's calling. I'm an expert in that.
Exactly.
You know something I can do real good that people don't know? I can work jigsaw puzzles like nobody's business. If they ever had a world championship, I'd win it.
Nice. Well, but you're right. I mean, I've never been deer hunting. Grew up on a farm. Never been.
Me either.
Been coon hunting more times than I can. I've been fox hunting. But I've just never been deer hunting. My mom loves deer and has always threatened to kill me if I kill one. So I've just never been out of respect for her. I could be great at it. Could love it.
You could be the world's leading expert.
Yeah, exactly.
But we weren't exposed.
Exactly. And and that's the thing. I flipped my first an honest to goodness flip. I did my first flip house last year. I loved it. I mean, it was stressful. It was especially with the economy the way it was. Waiting for that cliff. I remember 2 weeks before closing, I'm sitting here going, oh, let's hurry up and get this thing done. I can see the market. It's just going to drop off.
I can't take it anymore.
Yeah. But honestly, looking back at it, I'm sitting here going, I'd do it again. I'd do some things different, but I'd do it again.
You get addicted to that.
Oh, yeah.
Rush of some sort.
Yeah. Well, I like challenges. I've always loved a challenge. I've never had too many periods in my life where there wasn't a project of some sort going on.
A sideline?
Yeah, something. Back in 2018, I think, I decided to give my dad, he had a 77 C10 Chevy pickup. It's his first new truck. He bought it and decided he needed a ton truck in 79, so he gave it to my granddad. And so it was my granddad's truck my whole life. And he died in 2000, and it sat, and it was rusted out. So I made up some lie to my dad that I'd found a buyer who was coming to get it. So I had a tow truck driver come pick it up. Well, we got it restored in about 2 months. Got it back to its glory. I mean, this thing looks amazing. It's actually in my Hey Andrew videos. And, that was my project in 2018. 2019, it was my old 1980 Z28. Then in 2020, I guess 2021, sometime last year, it was this flip house. There's always some side project that I have going on because if not, I guess now it's the election. There's always something because life is just too short just to wake up, go to work, and come home. You have to have something else, or at least I do, something else going on that just adds a little bit of something to it,
Do you think that having something else going on makes you better at that thing that you're doing. It's like I get burnt out with building.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I started doing this.
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of doing this, if I was burnt out, I should just go to Arizona and sit in the Sonora desert.
Yeah, yeah.
But doing something harder
Yeah.
makes me not as burnt out as that.
It does. It's a therapeutic release. You know, it's something that you can focus your frustrations of your daily troubles, your daily work on this other thing. And you know, it's one of those things of, you know, especially with building somebody a house or representing somebody in court. It's a pretty big deal. I mean, if you mess up something on my house, I'm not going to be too happy.
And they got to pay for it for 30 years.
Exactly.
Theoretically.
It's pretty big deal.
It's a big deal to them.
It is. And, you know, me fighting for custody of your kids, biggest thing you got going on, you know, whatever that issue is. And so there's a lot of stress on you and a lot of stress on me. So doing this thing over here where the hardest thing I'm really trying to figure out on my hobby is, well, should we go with this engine part or should we go with this tile or what? It really kind of puts things in perspective for me for those side projects, you know, because it's something that I can enjoy and I can not take too seriously.
It doesn't have consequences like your real job.
Exactly. And that's the thing is, but at the same point, it's also something that you have a little bit of passion about. It might not be the thing I'm most passionate about, but it's something I enjoy, something that I really, you know, can get into. Plus,
it's almost like when you're a kid and you think, oh, I'm so sick of school. I remember years ago I was laying in bed and I was just a kid.
Yeah.
It was like in February or March or something, and I was just so sick of school. I hated school with a passion.
Yeah.
And my mother comes in and says, Mr. Geithner called you and he's picked you to be on his team again at Fulbright on the Angels. Man, I was just so excited.
Yeah.
I was, oh man, summer's coming and we're going to do this and I'm going to go to the ballpark and I'm going to be the pitcher this year. And so it gives you something. It made school not so humdrum.
Yeah. Well, it breaks up the monotony, you know.
And semi-productive.
Right. Well, and for me, you know, it's a little different with building a house, but for me, I like the tangible side of being able to see, you know, this old truck that was rusted out and now it's beautiful and it's this greenish. I like to see the transition of things. I like to see things move in the physical sense. You know, a lot of times with the practice of law, I can see the file moves here to there and papers get added to it and, you know, maybe the case is over. But it's not physical for me. It is for a client whose child gets to come home finally, or their bankruptcy's over and they get to, you know, a fresh start, whatever the case is. But for me, we just transition from that to another one. And as much as I care about that person that I helped, that ride is over for them and I'm moving on to the next one. But with the house or with the car or whatever I'm working on, I can put my fingers on it and I can work on it. And it's something that I get to just enjoy, you know, without having the stress of.
But you're never going to, you're the type of guy that's never going to say, well, I'm getting a little bored. My next hobby is going to be reading on Walden's Pond. Because that's not.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I jokingly told someone yesterday, I said, well, I hope Dee doesn't ask me the last book I read because I haven't been on vacation in a while. Because that's what I do.
That's not your thing.
No, if we go to the beach, if my wife and I go down to Daytona or something, I take a book and I'll read the book for the week. And I got one, Richard actually gave me a book years ago. I'm going to get the name wrong. It's like the True and Only Heaven. It's a book about conservative policy and economics. And it's about that thick. It's seriously just it took me 4 or 5 vacations to finish getting through it. And it's this kind of stuff that the majority of people would absolutely hate it. But I just loved it. It was just a more in-depth and theoretical about conservative ideology and economics. And it's the kind of stuff that just gets me excited. I read all kinds of old biographies of Thomas Jefferson or Adams or historical. I read one book once about the double agents employed by Great Britain and U.S. during World War II. Historical stuff that most people would just roll their eyes at that I just love. But the only time that I'm going to read a book or do anything like that is if I'm sitting by a pool or at a beach.
You're captive.
Right. Something where I know that my wife is going to kill me if I pull out a laptop and do work. Mm-hmm. Because the reality of it is, if I could get decent cell reception, I would be sitting on a beach having a Zoom hearing. Mm-hmm. I'd do it in a heartbeat. Mm-hmm. So it's the only time that I actually stop and actually read. Me having a staycation would result in me finding a project. I would build something, I would do something, I would fix something. I wouldn't do nothing. It just doesn't happen. I have to be captive.
Was you always been like that?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, that's, growing up on a farm, there's always something to do. There's a fence to be fixed. There's a cow that needs worked. There's something at all times. That to-do list never ends, and so that's how I was raised, and that's just how I've always been. At the same point, I got no problem at 10 o'clock at night, sitting down, watching TV for an hour or two, and relaxing.
What would you watch at 10 o'clock?
Whatever my wife puts on. She
go to bed late too?
No, she tries not to. She likes to go to bed at 10 or 11.
Yeah.
I'm more of a 12-1 kind of guy.
You watch TV from 11 to 12?
She'll put it on from about 10 o'clock. She usually sits down and puts something on. The Rookie, she likes it a lot. I like it. I've gotten out of watching Grey's Anatomy lately, which is nice. I've gotten to avoid. I haven't seen The Bachelor in a few years, so I'm really
You like the reality shows?
No. See, back when I was single and actually had control of the remote, I would watch things like Justified, and of course Game of Thrones was good. Justified, I think, was probably one of the best. Sons of Anarchy was
I like
good.
Justified.
It was they're talking about a reboot, but
I don't know why they quit that.
It was so good. They just went out on top.
It was good.
It was a great show.
It was great, man.
But things like that were good. Man, that's the thing. I don't watch much TV anymore.
Did you ever watch Elvis Costello? Remember when he was doing a talk show?
No.
It was really good. And I'm not a big Elvis Costello fan, but he'd have, he had some real good people on there, and it was just good.
Yeah. I find that whenever I have downtime and I'm just trying to relax, I go for things that are just entertainment, pure dumb entertainment. If I go to see a movie, I don't want to think. I want to go watch The Avengers. I want to go watch a Tom Cruise movie. I want to see Will Smith, one of his 4th of July blockbusters. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff I enjoy because it just removes the reality of it. Because watching Law and Order, oh my goodness, I'm sitting here just almost
stop. Makes you nervous.
Well, it's one of those things of you're analyzing things that people do. I had a friend from Memphis that got divorced. She's an attorney too, and she came up a couple years ago, and we were talking, and she was telling me about her divorce and some of the things that she's done since. And the whole time, one of my best friends, all I'm doing is analyzing her case, the whole conversation, which is not very enjoyable when you're trying to catch up with an old friend.
Yeah.
And, so that's one of those things. I try to, whenever I get a chance to turn it off, I like to turn it off. So I enjoy watching, things that just aren't real, Black Panther. It's great. Good stuff. At the same point, there's some that are...
Even Andy Griffith.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Just an escape.
Yeah. Lately I have been watching The Blacklist. It's one of those old, I don't know if you remember it. Yeah.
You know what I've been watching? Fathers Knows Best. Those.
Yes.
The old, I've got them from McKay's bookstore.
Yeah.
Boy, those shows are really good.
Oh, yeah. Those are some good ones. I find myself really getting into more of the FBI crime type, nothing crazy, but like the Mentalist, and something where the police are chasing a bad guy type thing.
What about Dateline? All that stuff.
My wife generally hates the things that have some reality to it, just because she's like, let's skip this. So I don't really watch too much that's true. It's just, again, it's too much interlap with what I do, So I try to, if I'm gonna take a break from it,
stay on the fiction.
Exactly. The fiction is just great. It's just entertainment, and if I want to learn something, I'll read a book. But I prefer the fiction. Of course, you know, one of the best movies I've seen in a while though is that Kevin Costner movie, Draft Day. I don't know if you've seen it. It's great.
Is it on Netflix or at the movies?
It should be Netflix. It's probably 6 or 7 years old. He's a GM for the Browns and got the first pick in the draft. And it's a good movie. Of course, Costner always did good with sports movies. Always did.
I always liked him. He has the physique of a sports guy.
Yeah. He's just I always enjoy his sports movies a lot. But yeah, that's just me.
But your next thing is running for office.
Oh yeah, we've been.
Now, what office is it? To the layman.
Sure.
To the layman.
Well,
not to you.
I know.
You know exactly everything.
That's the thing.
To the layman, we don't know what you're running for.
So I'm running for General Sessions Court, Civil and Juvenile. Is kind of the division of it. And what it is it's the civil session side is things like evictions, collections, small claims, things that are under $25,000 in value as far as a case. The juvenile side is everything from juveniles that get in trouble to unmarried parents who are having custody issues, dependency and neglect type cases where DCS is involved or a private person brings a petition like that. Then there's also environmental court, order protection court, mental health court, and that court actually also has jurisdiction over divorces as well. We haven't done that. Well, since I've been an attorney, we've not done that, and that's one I'd like to bring back into play, because right now our chancery court's so backed up. I mean, and nothing that the chancellor's doing wrong. It's just we've got a lot of cases. We have one chancellor for 4 counties, so ton of backlog.
So you're saying if you brought it back into the Sessions Court, it would relieve some pressure?
Some. I mean, because even if people filed just a handful of divorces over there, it's just a few less cases for her to hear.
Yeah.
You know, it's just one of those. She's slammed. And circuit court's not much better. I mean, you got 2 judges over there, but they're still just working like dogs.
Well, that's a broad range of things
that
you're talking about.
Well, and that's part of the thing. You know, over the last 14 years, I've done bankruptcy, domestic work, criminal work, personal injury. I've done pretty much everything that is covered, I've handled in some form or fashion. The juvenile side, I've done everything. I've also sat as judge on every type of case that there is to be heard, except for I haven't sat in environmental court or mental health court yet. But basically, this is the court that affects more people than any of the other courts we have. The chances of you being sued in Sessions Court are higher than in Circuit Court or Chancery Court.
For less than $25,000.
Exactly. Because, you know, people have medical bills that come up that they can't pay, and you get sued. You have old credit card debts. Your neighbor brings you to court because your dog chewed up its whatever. You know, these types of things get filed over there. There's tons of cases filed, but it's an area that I've practiced in. So yeah, we started the campaign officially back in September. I think it was September 30th last year. We had a big kickoff down at the Greenway Park. Had about 350 people show up. Since then, we've just been going kind of half steam. We've just been doing as much as we could. But you know, I'm still running a practice. We've not stopped that. We've not slowed down. Haven't turned many cases away. We've turned a few that are maybe a little more complex that I need to have more attention to, that we've passed off to some people, but you know, those are not in our normal wheelhouse anyway, things that aren't related to divorce or things like that. But yeah, we're at the point now that everything's pretty much at full speed ahead. We've got, as of today, we've got just over 2 months until the election. I mean, it's...
What is it, May the 3rd?
May the 3rd, yeah.
A little over 2 months.
A little over, just a smidge. So.
And early voting's when?
Oh, I think it starts like April 13th, give or take. So yeah, I mean,
I didn't remember when it was just the day of, or maybe one day before.
And that was
before long, they'll have it where you can vote all year.
Oh yeah, and that's it. You know, I remember when I was a kid, it was so much fun to go with my mom and dad out to Charleston to vote. And you know, when I was younger, I'd even go with my grandparents when they would vote over at Stewart School.
Yeah.
And then I'd go with mom and dad to Charleston, and I don't know, I've just always enjoyed it. You know, I guess it's the history that I've always just liked so much, just public service. I'm the kind of guy, red, white, and blue are my favorite colors. So
I've noticed on your sign it says the conservative candidate.
Yeah, yeah.
So what does that mean?
Yeah.
What is it?
Indeed. Well, there's so many people who have conservative on their paperwork.
It's a catchphrase.
Yeah, it is. And that's the thing. For me, for one, I'm the only candidate in my race with a 100% Republican voting record. I've never voted in a Democratic primary in my life. Just never have done it. Nothing against Democrats at all. Some of my good friends are. Nothing wrong with it, but I'm a Republican. Just how it is. To me, I am a fiscal conservative. I believe that we should spend people's money wisely. We need to be accountable for the money that we spend to theirs. We don't need to take any more than we absolutely have to. I think government, and this doesn't really pertain to the job, but I can't really talk about some of those things, so it's good. But I'm the type of person who believes that the government has certain jobs that they are constitutionally required to do, and beyond that, it's not their job. And so at the federal level, there's just not, we are doing far more at the federal level than we ever were allowed to do under the Constitution. Now, people can get into Commerce Clause and explain how things have, been expanded. And I understand, I'm not trying to argue that the Supreme Court got it wrong, but I feel like they did. I feel like the Constitution says what it says, and I think that we have no reason to have a federal budget that we have. I think that local government and the people are the best arbiters of what is best for that area. The people of Cleveland and Bradley County know Cleveland and Bradley County better than a politician in some far distant capital, as Reagan always said. And so that's why I'm a huge fan of keeping representation as local as you can have it. Beyond that, on social issues, I'm a big fan of Clint Eastwood. I think that if you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone, we'll all be happy.
Like at the end of Josie Wells.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that scene?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, Josie Wells is fantastic.
Remember, what was it he said? We came here. He said, I came here with my guns to show you I arrive in peace or I arrive in danger. Yeah. It's your choice. Yeah. Isn't that what it's
phrase? Something along those lines. And and that's the thing is it's one of those things of there's no reason for me to tell you how to live. Don't bother me. I'm not going to bother you, and everybody gets along just fine. So it's one of those that I'm not a big fan of government overreach. I'm not a fan of a CDC telling us what we can and can't do at the state level, especially on things like whether or not we can have court. I'm just somebody who believes that the government's role should be limited. I think that the Bill of Rights is there to tell government that you are limited in what you are able to do. And I think that, the section of the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, the amendments that actually get into all those rights not enumerated herein belong to the people in the states respectively. And I think that that's important. And I think we've lost sight of that.
That's a big clause.
That's a big clause. And unfortunately, I think, was it, I'm going to get his name wrong, Bjork or Ben, my paralegal, he can spout this off.
Ben Abshire.
Ben Abshire. Ben is he is somebody who I can name a.
Is he your Ed McMahon?
He pretty much is. Him and Josh Moffs are honestly two of my best friends. They've worked for me. Josh has been with me for for 6 years, and Ben's been with me for 3 or 4. But these guys are just great. But yeah, Ben can just rattle it off. One of the Supreme Court justices basically said that the 10th was an ink blot on the Constitution. And I don't think so. I think that the 10th is one of the most important amendments there is because, I just firmly believe that you and I have a better shot at getting it right than somebody from Montana. I'm not even going to say California, but somebody who's not from here. I was in Boston last weekend for my wife's doctor's appointments, and, they don't know how to make sweet tea. If you can't make sweet tea, why should you be telling me how to run my life? And, to me... And
why should we tell California what to do with their oceans? I can't surf.
I can't either.
I don't even need to have a vote in that.
It's the sort of thing, I think that, Polk County, Bradley County need to be the ones handling our local river. Let's talk to the counties and the areas that are affected by whatever the issue is. Somebody in Nevada has no concept of what our mountains are like. I can't tell them about theirs. I mean, they're not used to seeing the trees and the beautiful fall colors. I mean, that's just not their experience. It's like we started talking about perspective. If you don't have a perspective on what we do, so that's some of the reasons I'm a conservative. But to me, to your original question, the reason it says conservative, honest, and fair is because I believe that I've always been fair with everybody in my life. I try to treat everybody better than I would expect them to treat me. I try to handle myself in an honest way. Try to make sure that I don't tell somebody something that's not true or could be construed as not being true. And the conservative side, I think that anybody who knows my policy positions, knows my feelings about anything on a political level, knows that, the reason I fly that, well, I interchange between the Tennessee state flag and the Don't Tread on Me, the Gadsden flag, because, those two flags mean the world to me. I think that government should really lay their hands off of people and, let's not be overly intrusive. I just think that you should be able to raise your children, not the state. And so it's one of those that how that applies to the job, I think, is I would love to see, I would like to see a nice interplay between private enterprise and our juvenile courts. I would love to see more people volunteer their businesses and their services to mentor kids,
Let me tell you about Gobble's Automotive. They're on North Lee Highway, just past Captain D's. They're family owned, they're family operated. My whole family uses it. They've stood the test of time. They will do you a good job. Give them a try. They're no problem. How would, you say, but you'd just like to see the public or volunteers help more with your courts. But I see your job as simply ruling on stuff. But you're seeing it as more of a...
Yeah. Well, and this is the dichotomy of me. I'm a free market, not anti-government, but limited government kind of guy. At the same point, I do believe that once the state brings a child into the system, I think that we have a duty to help that child as best we can. Now, I'm not talking about Big Brother here. What I'm talking about is I had a kid a few years ago that I represented. I got appointed to represent him. He had a file that was about that thick. He was 15. He was 6'2", 300 pounds. Big kid. And part of the reason I got him is Judge Swafford felt that he needed an attorney that he had to look up to. And so he got me.
Yeah.
Well, this kid, all of his problems were just piddly. It was things like he lit one of the old aerosol hair cans. He made it a flamethrower.
They used to do that for years.
All the time. He went to Walmart and got some chicken, was eating it through the store and didn't pay for it. Not good stuff, but it's not like he's out here knocking over a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
He's just needs some help. And so I told him after we got to the point that Judge Swafford said, "Son, you're at the end of your rope." I said, "Judge, can we try something different? Can I have him come to my office and be an intern and shadow me and go with me and do this and that?" He said, "Yeah, every day after school, get off the bus, go to Andrew's office and do whatever he says." So what we did. This kid got to the point that by the time, I'd say a year in, he was going to Regions Bank for me with cash that he counted, that I never looked at, and depositing it. I trusted him that much. And that kid now is in his early 20s. He has gotten in trouble one time. He had a little bit of marijuana on him. That was it. Based upon what everybody said his trajectory was, he's doing great. I mean, if that's the only thing, because this is a kid that he was a big kid. People would pick on him. They would challenge him to fight. So he got in a lot of trouble for fighting. He's the kid that I could see being part of a heist as an unsuspecting oof who just was there. He just happened to be there, and hey, come on, we need you for a few minutes. This kid's staying out of trouble. He's not gotten anyone pregnant. And I know some people, watching at home are sitting here going, well, that doesn't sound... No, this is a victory. I mean, and that's the thing is this kid, I never met his father. His mom has my cell phone number. His dad, I don't think, is in the picture. I don't think he ever had been. But having private enterprise, private individuals who are willing to step in and mentor some of these kids. I actually met with Big Brothers Big Sisters at Chattanooga a week or two ago about looking at a pilot program involving them and the juvenile system. That type of stuff are things that we can do and not have government money involved. My time to help set some things up and get volunteers. At the same point, having an interplay between certain nonprofits. Habitat for Humanity, I donate a lot of money and time to them. And having them help out in situations and maybe direct parents over to them and to other charities to help them in certain areas. Because one thing, we talked about the why. One thing I'm interested in on things such as truancy or things of that sort are why are we having the problem that we're having? Do we have the problem because mom is working third shift and she's not home at the time, doesn't get home in time to see the children out to school? Is it that mom has to be at work at 6 in the morning, or dad, and no one's there to get the child up? Does someone not have a car? Where's our problem? Mm-hmm. Okay, once we identify what the problem is, now why can't we sort of help push them or direct them over to certain people and places that might be able to help out? I'm not talking about handouts, but if there's a situation where, hey, Sethra, they'll come pick you up and take you to school, or not to school, to work. If there's somebody who has a service that they do, Foundation House Ministries is an amazing organization that we've worked with for years. They have so many things that they can help out with young mothers, and I direct my clients over there all the time, to them, to Solomon Family Solutions. But that's the thing, is helping take people who are in the system and showing them, here's a resource that you need to look at. It's not something that's hard. It's not something that's difficult.
Is that part of the court's job to do that?
Not necessarily. But Dee, the thing of it is what I feel like you need in a juvenile judge is somebody who doesn't take it as a job. I don't think you need somebody who looks at it as a job. I think you need somebody who looks at it as a calling. Somebody who takes their time and takes their own time and develops those relationships outside of the 9 to 5, the 8:30 to 4:30, and tries to incorporate this into what they're doing.
So you're saying your job is not necessary to rule if this juvenile is right or wrong?
It is, but I think it goes beyond that. I think that what we've been doing for years of keeping it just black and white isn't working. I think that we need to go a step beyond that, and I'm saying that I, as the juvenile court judge, if I get that position, I think it's my responsibility, if I'm going to truly try to break these generational cycles, I think that I need to put my money where my mouth is and help these families look at some of the resources. I don't know if you've ever sat in juvenile court. A lot of times you'll hear things like, well, I want you to talk to Centerstone, I want you to have some counseling, I want you to do this.
So this is their sentencing or their punishment?
It's not really, and see, that's the thing, it's not really punishment. We're not, because you have this wide gamut of offenses and situations. You have things where you have, tardy too much because of some reason. Then you have kids who hold up a 7-Eleven, kind of like I mentioned. So you have this wide range of offenses.
People under 18.
Exactly, and something very serious that they need to be treated as an adult.
But are you set as a juvenile court judge supposed to, this crime equals this punishment?
No.
So that's where my mind is messed up.
No, and that's the thing. The whole point of the juvenile court system is rehabilitation. It's all about rehabilitation.
Whereas another court
the adult court, it's sentencing, and it's right.
So that's the confusion.
Yes. So that's the whole thing. We have the spectrum of offenses, a spectrum of situations, and what I guess I'm saying is this: in my mind, we do not need to have some cookie cutter approach that treats all these kids as the same. And
such as
if you get caught with a vape, here's the penalty. It's not that. I need to know what's going on. What's going on at home? Mom, tell me, has he been acting up? Has this happened?
Was he carrying it for somebody? Who knows?
What's the deal? Because it's one of those things of, we find ourselves treating these kids as if it's a black and white issue, and there's more to it. and that's, I guess, Dee, what I'm trying to get to is I want to see what the why is, and then I want to see what can we do to stop this behavior. What can we do to get this kid back on the straight and narrow? What can we do to make sure this kid graduates high school, gets into college, a trade school, the military, whatever this child's trajectory is that they want to be on? What can we do to help them? Now, I'm not talking about some big government program to do. I'm talking about just taking a few minutes and listening. I'm talking about getting to know these kids. You know, we bring them out and we just treat them all like, and I'm not saying the juvenile, I want you to hear, I'm not saying that this is how the juvenile court treats them. I'm saying that as a society, I feel like there's too many times that we just look at a problem and a solution as a punishment, and I think that too often we just bypass the why. And I think that's something we have to focus on. We have to listen to the why, and we have to break these cycles. You know, I had a case once where I represented a child. He was a young child at the time. His mom had gotten in trouble for drugs. His stepdad was on cocaine, and he was taken by DCS. Well, fast forward 10, 12 years, and I was representing him because he shot somebody. Now, I'm not saying that this led to this. I'm just saying I would hope that we could attack the problem when he's 4, 5, 6 years of age before we get to the point of him taking a gun and shooting somebody. I want to focus on trying to help fix the problem. You know, the mom in that question actually got in with Habitat for a little while and was working toward home ownership, and something came off the rails. I wasn't there at the time. I was appointed, so I wasn't still in the picture. But that's the whole thing, is we need to give these kids as much of a chance as we can. And we're not going to save every child, but hey, if I'm going to be in this job, I'm going to do all I can to try to help. And some kids, they need tough love. They need punishment. Other kids, they need somebody to care about them. And it all comes down to getting to know the child and the situation.
And we don't necessarily need these kids to have that, you know, he ate a piece of chicken at Walmart on his list.
Exactly.
I mean, they are kids.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I can't speak for you, but when I was 13, I'm sure I did some dumb things.
How many of us have eaten grapes in the produce section? What's the difference?
You know, exactly. And that's the thing, is it comes to be one of those things of, you know, we gotta take care of our victims, but we also need to look at our situation involving the person who did it and figure out why. You know, let's see what it is that, you know, what service out there can we try to hook them up with. At the same point, you know, I had a kid at church today. You know, I've never met the kid until a few weeks ago. He came up to me and he said, "You're running for juvenile court judge, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I just wanted you to know that I'm on probation right now." And he told me his YSO. And I said, "Oh yeah, he's a good guy." And he said, "Well, he told me that you know, if I keep behaving myself, I'm gonna get off probation in 2 weeks." And he came up to me today to tell me that he had successfully gotten off. And this kid, I mean, literally never talked to him before 2, 3 weeks ago. And he came up because he was so proud that he had graduated and gotten off of it. He might be 14, might be 13, but me taking just a few minutes of my time just to talk to him and go, "Hey man, that's great. I'm so proud of you." And just give him that encouragement and say, "Hey, if you ever, you know, feel like you need to talk to somebody, give me a call." Now,
what if it had sent that guy off to reform school? It'd have been a disaster.
And you know, I've had some of those. I've had some of those where that happened. And you know, the thing you kind of have to remember is sometimes you send them off and they learn more.
So you don't know necessarily.
Yeah. I mean, I literally, I've seen one kid that went off and he came back with more knowledge to make his crimes worse. And I'm not saying that that's not a solution. I'm just saying, there's a reason that there's 22 caliber bullets. There's a reason there's 45 caliber bullets. Not every bullet fits in the same gun. And that's the thing. And it's a terrible analogy for children, I know. But my point is you don't have one solution for everything. There are different solutions for different situations.
Especially in the juvenile court.
Especially because all these kids, they have different life experiences. They have different perspectives. They have different home lives. That's what you have to get to know and figure out how to reach them, how to get to them. And I think that you know, it's easy for us to put on our robe and sit up there and hey, this is he did something bad and this is what we need to do. It's easy. It's harder to take time and get to know the story. But that's what you have to do. And it's time consuming, but it's what you have to do. You have to get to know these kids, not as a file, but as who the individual is.
The backstory.
You have to. And what's going on in their life. You know, the kid that we had brought in as a intern, you know, good kid. He just, you know, mom was working all the time. He had another brother, and it was just the three of them. And it just was a situation where he didn't have a positive male role model in his life. And that's what he needed. And, you know, it's one of those things. He sends me messages every now and then, reaches out, and, you know, just getting a little bit of a, I'm proud of you. For me, I feel like went a long way with him, you know, back when he was working with us. And he showed up. He did the things he should. I'm not sure where he's working today because I just hadn't seen him in a while. But it's one of those things of that kid, when he left our internship, he had a good trajectory. And he was able to graduate from high school. And, you know, it's one of those that just pouring into him is something that, you know, if I never get anything else right, at least I might have done a little bit of good for him, you know? And just having these kids know that somebody cares.
Juvenile court might be the most important court we have.
I think it is. I think hands down. Because, you know, by the time you get to sessions criminal or to criminal court, you pretty much, if you're a repeat offender, you've pretty much chosen your road. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying that you can't fix it. You can, you know, go to rehab. You can, you know, find Jesus. You can, you know, do the things you need to do. But it's one of those that for juveniles, I mean, there's a reason that we don't let kids vote till they're 18. There's a reason you can't, you know, buy cigarettes till you're, I don't even know what it is now.
Drink till you're 21 or
yeah,
whatever.
Yeah, whatever it is now. You can't buy alcohol. You know, their brains are still forming. They're still developing. They're still trying to figure out who they are. And so it's one of those things of, I'm not saying that they should get a free pass, but at the same point, you've got to spend a little bit of time and get to know the story. You have to. And if you don't, then you're just doing them a disservice. You're treating them like everybody else always has.
And we've brought them into the system.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So now we have to have a good system.
That's the key point, is once you bring them in, you have to have a good system.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, DCS does some good work. There's some times that, you know, I've had cases with them where I have to get onto DCS, you know, where I'm guardian ad litem or parent's attorney, and I've got to make sure that DCS does the right thing. But it's one of those things of, once we bring them into the court system, once we bring them into state's custody in some of those situations, we have to make sure that we do right by them, because that's what I would want for my children. I would want them to be done right by a court, and so that's what my approach is.
We don't want to create monsters.
No, and that's the thing, is we've already got a jail here in Bradley County that's full. I mean, it's full. It is. Why not try to attack the problem here and try to avoid some of those problems later?
And so instead of crime and punishment, it's more like issues and guidance.
Exactly. Well, that, and also, you know.
And that's where you get your conservative. You're not saying I'm a conservative Republican necessarily.
Yeah.
You're saying I'm conservative in the fact that I think that states should have rights and cities and counties should have the rights to adjust the laws
as we need it. Well, it's just like the truancy law in Tennessee right now. You know, it's great for bigger cities. It's great for the Memphis, Shelby counties of the world. It's not good for Bradley County. It just isn't. We need to go back to our old system. I'd love to see it where the state lets us opt out and go back to the system that works for us. That's what I'd love to see. But, you know, and that's it, is I'd like to see a situation where we can take a look and see what works. We've had too many years of doing things the way it's always been, and it just doesn't work. But, you know, you got folks like Vicky Town over at Juvenile Justice. Her and her staff are amazing. I love those folks. I mean, they really do a good job. They care about the kids. There's not a person over there that I could ever tell you doesn't love the kids that they work with. No matter what they've done, they show them love and they work with them and they try to help. You know, I had a kid a few years ago that ended up we had a transfer hearing, and he ended up going to adult court, and he's being treated as an adult for the crime he committed. It was a horrible situation.
Horrible.
It was. But the whole time he was there, everybody from the guards in the back to the YSOs to the court staff, everybody treated that kid like he was a member of the family. And I think that showing that love, it matters. It truly does. And while we weren't able to save him, hey, we're going to keep trying.
Maybe juvenile court was created originally not to punish kids, but to have a better society as they get older, and that's what we're getting away from. We think it's all about, or not us getting away from it, but maybe it just needs to be focused. That's what you're trying to put the focus.
It is. You know, it's one of those of, you know, I want to see a situation. Last week we had, or 2 weeks ago, we had a situation where there was a mom who'd missed court. And, you know, I wasn't there for the previous hearings. You know, candidly, was not there. But, you know, she's in the jail on the jail phone with the video, and there's a delay. And I don't know who all knows there's a delay, but she's talking over the judge. Well, she ends up with 10 days in jail for missing court and for talking over. Well, he didn't say it was for talking over, but, you know, that agitates people.
Right.
And I don't know if he knew that there was a delay on it. And I'm not trying to hold that against him or anybody else, but it's one of those things that you have to have that patience. You have to have that you can't be walked on, but you have to have a little bit of patience and listen to people and find out what it is. Now, again, not saying it's a situation that I might have done differently, but people have to have faith in the rulings that you give them. They have to have faith that you're siding the way you're siding out of some logical point. And if you can explain to people why I'm doing it, I think that's what matters. Getting full circle back to what you started with. We started that conversation by accident. We did, exactly. But that's it. The why matters, and that's what I have always tried to do when I've set a special judge. Is if I make a ruling, I like to have people understand why I did it. And I've found that people may not always agree with me, but they at least can respect that I've told you why I'm where I'm at. So, yeah.
Is this election tiring you out?
No. It's one of those things. I'm used to getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep, so it's just the newest reason I don't go to bed early. But no, it's actually great. You know, we've been going pretty hard for the past few weeks. Every chance I get that I'm not in court or with a client, we're out doing something. But no, but I will tell you this: come May the 11th, I'm going on vacation.
Why the 11th?
The place we were going to was booked, so my wife bumped it out.
Otherwise, it'd been the 4th or 5th.
Yeah,
you got to stay a little while.
Well, and I got to go get signs up. You know, win or lose, I'm pulling the signs up. You know, we've got other.
Don't you hate that?
No, actually, I enjoy that. I do. I really
it's
enjoy.
Over. Do you worry about the signs you got out and said, "Oh, I wonder if it's still standing. I wonder if it's blew over."
I get calls all the problem we're having right now is we've had a lot of people cutting the signs, having them cut the zip ties off. So I joked to my dad. I said, "Do we still have a nice set of electric fence?" Because honestly, having that electric fence wire, if we put it up with that, it's harder to cut.
Oh yeah,
so you got some pliers at least. So I've been thinking about using that instead of the zip ties. But I usually make a trip out. That's one good thing about getting up early. You know, I went out to Georgetown one day last week and popped up one of the signs. It was cut down, and I put it back up. I actually replaced it with a 2x4 and used that 4x4 somewhere else.
Back to that farming experience.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, you know, the funny thing, and you won't believe me on this, I had never used a post driver like we use on these until this election. And the reason is when you grow up on a farm, you work smarter. So we would always bring the tractor out if we're putting fence up and use the bucket and just push that sucker into the ground.
Now you do that.
Oh, yeah. But the good thing is, also growing up on a farm, about 3 hits and you're done.
Yeah.
2 maybe. But yeah, so it's, and you know, of course, my dad had one that's about 60 pounds. So that sucker, it's a bit harder to get up here, but man, it'll go through just about
Boy,
anything.
you know, that is a great invention.
Oh, it is. It is.
I don't even remember it being around that long. Do you?
I don't. Like I said, we never used it. Now we
post driver.
Oh yeah. Now the post. We used to have a post driver that we used on the farm that was for the big wooden posts that would actually hydraulic pump in.
Yeah.
Oh man, that would save, because otherwise we'd have to dig.
Those others, you can drive, the one you're talking about, you can drive it through asphalt.
Hey, if you get a heavy enough post driver,
it'll go through
it can. Now the bad thing is when it's about 25 degrees.
Yeah.
That's cold and it hurts.
And the thing's cold.
Oh, it is. And my hands, I'm not that old, but I'm pushing 40, and man, my hands just ache when you
Are you just now pushing 40?
Yeah, I'll be 40 in August. So I tell you, I don't know where the last 20 years have gone, but they've
You got a nice haircut.
Well, thank you.
Who cut that?
That was actually Elena down at the Fade Company. So yeah.
Where's that at?
That is behind.
Oh, the Fade. Where have I heard that?
It's behind the seafood place on Edmond Street. The Catch. It's back behind there, between there and the.
Because not many people can get that.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's
and that's the thing is, you know, I don't like having a lot of hair. I don't. I'd shave it off if my wife and my mom wouldn't.
You weren't if you was me.
Oh my goodness, I tell you, I just don't like having a lot of hair. It's
called what, the high fade?
Oh yeah, and that's what I always like to get, the high fade. It's just more. I just don't like having a lot of hair. It gets hot in the summertime, and I'd just rather not have it. It makes it easier to wake up in the morning too. You just get up, get a shower, you're done.
You know, having a short haircut makes you look meaner.
It does, which is good. I need something to make me look meaner. I've always been described as being too nice, so anything to make me look meaner.
What's the thing for?
So back in my wife has a neurological disease. It's called neurofibromatosis type 2. It's basically a disease where tumors grow on her nerves. The sheath that covers your nerve, she doesn't have a protein that stops the growth, so that sheath can just grow, and whatever nerve it's on, it can kill the nerve. And so she's deaf in her left ear, and she's hard of hearing on the right, and has balance issues, and just, it's a horrible disease. It's just terrible. So back in 2014, I decided that I was going to try to raise some money for the Children's Tumor Foundation, which is the charity that really researches her disease. And so I had 1,000 of these made and was sell them for a donation. And man, we sold, I don't know how many we sold over the years, but I had the same one, never take it off and just leave it on all the time. I had that thing from 2014, August of 2014 when I put it on, until just about 2 months ago. And my dog, 85-pound terrier, just for some reason got his nail here and just pulled it.
It might have been a little old too.
It was definitely a little old. So I, thank goodness, still had a few, so I put it on.
Is there a cure for that disease?
There's not. It's the only thing they can do is take the tumor off, which is not always possible because it gets so intertwined.
And where is it?
Exactly. I mean, she used to go to Vanderbilt. She had an amazing neurosurgeon who did her first brain surgery. It was 24 hours long, the surgery, which is just baffling to me. But then she had a guy who did her spinal cord surgeries and other surgeries, and he was amazing as well, but he retired. So the new guy that she went to basically said, there's no reason for you to keep getting MRIs. There's nothing that can be done. Basically just go home and quit. I mean, it's terrible. And for Vanderbilt, which we loved Vanderbilt. Yeah. So my wife being she's a doctor of physical therapy, so she's brighter than I am. And so she is her best advocate. So she started doing research, and she found out that Mass General in Boston has an amazing NF2 clinic. So she tried to get in with the head of the clinic, and he was booked out like 6, 8, 9 months. So she got in with the guy that's right under him, and he's probably my age, and just smart as a whip. I mean, just amazing resume. And so we got in to see them just a few years ago. And so the neurosurgeon he sent her to saw these tumors that this other guy said he couldn't do anything about. He took 3 tumors off of her spine, right up here near her neck. Took 3 of them off in like 2.5 hours. Said no problem. It was like a walk in the park for this guy. I mean, just one of the smartest guys. He's French. And so he's just so elegant in everything he says and does, but just an amazing guy. So we go up there every 3 months and see them, and they've got.
Was it a scanner for more of these?
Yeah, we do brain scans, spinal cord scans, and they started in May. They put her on a chemo pill for lung cancer. They're trying it out to see how it would affect her tumors. And when we went up there in November, they actually, for the first time in 20 years, told her that some of her tumors had shrank. Not much, but a little bit. We went last week, and they basically told us that they were stable. So they're
What's
talking
shrinking
about the chemo somehow, because she has one. It's right behind her esophagus, between her esophagus and her spinal cord, and it's. Of course, it's hard for me to know because I'm a lawyer, I'm not a doctor, but it looks in the scan like it's about that big. I mean, pretty decent size. But it was one of the ones that shrank a little bit. So basically, they're trying to kill the tumor because she had radiation on her brain twice before, and it actually stopped the growth of one of the acoustic neuromas that she had. And so radiation can help. The problem she has is some of the ones, like the one in her throat and the ones in the base of her spine, they're too close to organs that you don't really need to have radiation spillage onto, thyroid and things of that sort. So chemo, radiation, and surgery are basically the only 3 options. But the problem is from what we've been told, is when you start cutting, you can aggravate these things. You can cause them to grow. And some of the I don't want to say evidence, but anecdotal evidence is some of the older chemo drugs they tried, she had seen in some of the groups that she's in, that people complain that when they come off the chemo, the tumors start growing again. So she's avoided most of it. But this one, so far, she's tolerated it well. She's been on it since May. They're talking about doubling her dosage to see if it'll maybe kickstart it back into, I don't want to say working because nothing's grown, but try to get it to the point where it's maybe making some more progress again, because she's been on a walker for three years, and she is so ready to come off of it. She's ready to walk again, and that's the miracle we're praying for and we're holding out hope for, and I believe she's going to get it. It's just a question of when. So, but yeah.
If you could jog to Chattanooga right now to fix it, you'd done be gone.
Oh, my goodness. I'd switch places with her in a heartbeat. I would. Her mom and I both have told her that a million times. And it's one of those of she's an amazing person. She's had to learn to walk 3 times. 3. I remember after her second spinal cord surgery, she was in inpatient rehab in Nashville. And she called me. Her mom had to come back to work, and I stayed at her apartment. She was at Belmont at the time. And she called me at 1 a.m. I went and slept on her floor of her room because she just was having such a bad night. But the emotional and mental toughness that she's shown, it's the sort of thing of makes you never want to complain. No matter how bad your day is, no matter how bad you hurt, no matter how sick you are.
No matter what happens.
Oh yeah, there's no reason to complain. I got it good, So, but she's a tough one. She is. So.
I believe we have found your inspiration.
Oh yeah, it's the sort of thing of she's the reason I wake up in the morning. And I learned early on. I mean, with her disease, we would never try having children. I mean, kill her. Not to mention it's a genetic disease, so it pass on. So, and that's a big part of the reason that I have such a desire to help kids, because I always planned on having 3 myself. But, when you're faced with that choice of this dream of having children versus actually the person that you love more than anything in the world, it's an easy choice. You go with that person that you love. So, yeah, so I'm, trying to help kids and pour into people. That's the interns that I have, my employees, all these folks, they're like kids to me. I mean, I text I have 2 girls that interned for us in the past, they're sisters. And I sent them a message yesterday just checking on them and asking if they were going to be near the Vol shop, pick me up a new t-shirt, But you know, they're like my kids. You know, I'm so proud of them. We've got them 3 kids at UT. We've got kids in law school, and you know, it's just one of those that they mean the world to me. And you know, hopefully I've been able to share a little bit of something with them. But yeah, Brittany is, for those who don't know her, she's amazing.
I believe we found your why.
Yep, pretty much.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you, my friend.